Well, thank you for coming out tonight. Again, I'm Melanie Cooper, the Interim Associate Director for Programming and Marketing of the Arts Council of York County. And we are here to celebrate the 18th Annual Literary Competition and the 10th Annual Youth Literary Competition. So thank you all for coming out and for supporting the competition, for submitting. We have a few things to go over before I introduce our MC for the evening. So tonight we're honoring both poetry and short story. So you'll hear excerpts from both as we go through the night. We have 5 awards in each category that will be awarded. There'll be first, second, third place, plus 2 honorable mentions. And all authors who placed in the competition will receive a certificate tonight. Now our first through third place winners will also receive monetary awards. Those will be mailed out next week, so tonight you'll just get those certificates. Be on the lookout for your mail if you've received a check. We have to thank our sponsors. We cannot do this without their help. The Perihelion Book Club has been a partner of ours since 2015, and they've joined us again this year. They are there any members of the Perihelion Book Club here tonight? We've got one. Thank you so much for continuing to support us. It means a lot to us. So they are sponsoring the Adult Awards tonight. Also, Williams & Fudge is joining us as the sponsor of the very first monetary awards for the youth prizes tonight, which is fantastic. Is anyone from Williams & Fudge here? Well, we'd like to thank them. Also, we received a grant from the South Carolina Humanities Group. They gave us a Fast Track Humanities grant. So this program is supported by South Carolina Humanities, a not-for-profit organization inspiring and engaging and enriching South Carolinians with programs on literature, history, culture, and heritage. This program is also supported by the South Carolina Arts Commission, which receives support from the National Endowments for the Arts. Do we have anybody from either of those groups here tonight? All right. So now the Cotton Alley Writers Review contains many of the winning pieces that will be published tomorrow on our website. And because we received the grant from the South Carolina Humanities Group, we're actually printing copies of it for the first time this year. So all of our winners can stop by the Center for the Arts once they come in. We'll let you know when they're in and pick up a copy for yourself. Now, when the awards are announced, come on up and get your award. We'll be allowing you time at that point to read your poem, to read an excerpt from your story, and then Angelo will hand you your certificate. Make sure that when you get up here, you project into the microphone. It's sometimes kind of hard to pick up everybody's speech, or get about 3 to 4 inches from it. We will be spraying it in between each speaker, and that'll sanitize it for the next one. And now, for the best part, I'm going to introduce Rock Hill's Poet Laureate, Angelo Diedrick.
Good evening. I'm gonna move this mic just a little bit because I'm a little bit taller than Melanie, but not too much. Good evening, everybody. How y'all doing? Y'all can do a little better. How you doing? Awesome. Thank you, Melanie, for that great introduction. You don't have to ever introduce me, but I appreciate you doing it anyway. Again, as she said, my name is Angelo Diedrick. I am the Poet Laureate for the city of Rock Hill. It's really an honor to be here. This is the second year that I'm hosting this, but the first year has been in person since I've been hosting. So this is really amazing. So give yourselves a hand for being here this afternoon. Anytime there's a packed house of poetry and short stories and writing, I think it's just an amazing thing, right? So thank you all for being here. Thank you already in advance to those who submitted and for those who either placed or have won competitions for today. It takes a lot to put your art and your thoughts and your feelings on paper and to put it out there to the world is the second thing that's hard to do as well. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for the families and stuff that are supporting. Give yourselves a hand if you're supporting. Awesome. So we have a lot of great writing, and I also had the opportunity to serve as one of the judges this year for the youth and adult poetry. So it was great to see, to read some of that work. So I really can't wait for the writers to read them themselves today. So, how I'll run this is I'll announce the winners. So it start from honorable mention and then go all the way up to the first place. So I'll just say, honorable mention, the person in the poem or the work, and then you'll come up and you read an excerpt from that or for the whole work if it's a poem. All right, that makes sense? And what we need to do as support a crowd is give them the biggest applause, like it's our favorite artist we've ever seen in life, whether it be Cher, whether it be Michael Jackson from the grave, Prince, whatever. We're going to give them the biggest applause we ever had in our life, right? Right? All right, so let's practice that. Coming up to the stage is first person. I like it. Good. You give them the first round. All right. So the first category I'll be announcing is the youth poetry competition. And for honorable mention, our first winner is with the poem I Am by Lily Sinclair. Clap it up for Lily.
I love you, a bush on a peck and a hug on the neck. Family gatherings with mountains of food, cream potatoes and collard greens, Nana's chocolate cake. I love you, a bush on a peck and a hug on the neck. Looking at Christmas lights and opening gifts on Christmas Eve, celebrating Jesus' birthday. Papa's garden and colorful fruit trees with the sweetest, juiciest fruit. Eating cobbler and ice cream at the Peach Festival. I love you, a bush on a peck and a hug on the neck. Slide, and pretty as a peach. My dogs are barking and hush your mouth. My Nana saying, well, Sonny. I love you, a bush on a peck and a hug on the neck. I am from people who live in small towns in the middle of nowhere, fields that go on as far as you can see. Grandma and Papa's church where everybody knows everybody. I love you, a bush on a peck and a hug on the neck.
One more time for Lily, everybody. All right, our second honorable mention in the youth poetry competition is the poem Eyes by Alex Diedrick. Hope I said that right. Is that correct? Clap it up for Alex.
With these eyes, I feel oceans run warm, tides breaking waves upon my skin, only rearing its seafoam silver face behind quietly closed doors. I watch a screen flickering between static and 1,000 nameless faces, catch glimpses of other lives, other times, and occasionally the dark shadow reflected just behind. I peer endlessly through panes of crystal, in stunning color and array, yet while the sunlight streaming in is cheerful, I look down and see only cloud and sky. I read 100 words in 100 different places, each more morbid than the last, and still remain detached, as if it all goes away the moment my eyelids close. I gaze on hollow sights among the city's blinding lights, and at times it feels as though the clock has stopped. But at last, as I set down to sleep and can hear only the buzzing of lonely flies, I lay and reconcile with the mind behind the eyes.
Awesome. One more time for Alex. Great job. All right. In third place for the youth poetry competition, clap it up for The Twisted Tongue by Jack Dickens.
Set this out here. Okay, trying to get this, I can see this. Okay.
You can take your mask off.
I know. Don't have to remind me. Okay. The Twisted Tongue. This story is strange, but this story is true. This story all started when I sang a tune. The silly song, the strange old tune, twisted my tongue and tangled it too. I couldn't speak, it wouldn't move, Curse that silly, dumb old tune. I just have to hide my tongue all day long. To show it would be an embarrassing thought. So I held the tongue in. It filled up my mouth. I couldn't talk or scream or shout. My teacher asked, "Are you okay?" I shook my head yes, and she went away. Oh, how it hurt. It was starting to strangle. I just had to get this darn tongue untangled. Then my mom asked if I was okay. I wrote on a paper, "I have a toothache." My mom replied, "Well, that is okay. I'll schedule a dentist appointment today." Oh no, I thought. I wish I could scream. I had to untangle to end this whole thing. The more I untangled, the tighter it grew. The more it was strangled, it turned a dark blue. Oh, how it burned. It throbbed like a fire. It twisted and turned until I was tired. Then an idea came into my brain. I had to sing backwards the tune that I sang. It made perfect sense. To untie a shoe, you have to reverse it. Sing backwards the tune. Slowly and carefully, my tongue unwound. It was now there for me, safe and sound.
One more time for Jack, everybody. I really love doing this. I have the time of my life up here. Are y'all enjoying yourselves so far? Yeah. Awesome. So moving right along to the second place for the youth poetry competition. This person wins $75 for the poem "In His Throne" by Harlan Rembert.
I won't make y'all sit through the whole thing. I'll just read this ending section right here. His thoughts crescendo as the image of the sky fills his eyes. Clouds rumble silently overhead, swimming away as they always have. Some roll over themselves again and again, clumping into a different shape each time. Others, like his world, grow longer, then break into gauzy strips, and eventually fade from view completely. He knows now, more than ever, that this moment he loves will not last forever, or even much longer. It will all unfold, a massive book, spread open from cover to cover, or even the longest book, the author must still write the end. Finally, the projector flashes the dark question in his mind, and he wonders if, as God watches him, he already has the final chapter in mind, when he will write the end and close the book. The thought sits in his mind, like everything that sat unresolved between him and the beautiful creature that slipped quietly into his mind through the bottom of a locked door. He thinks it ought to disturb him, but he instead contorts his face into something that is no longer a smile, but not quite an expression of pain. He breathes it all in, because he doesn't care what will happen anymore. He just wants to gaze at the sky. For the boy in the lawn chair grew up and lost some of his wonder, but he never lost the sense of amazement he got when he looked up at the clouds.
I gotta be honest, I've always wanted to be cool and have a cool voice like Harlan does. Right? That stance is like really professional. Yeah, I woke up today and I'm about to kill y'all real quick, and I'm about to, that was really awesome. Great job. One more time for Harlan, everybody. All right, so our first place winner for the youth poetry competition, this young lady is actually one of our youth poetry ambassadors for the city of Rock Hill. It was one of our finalists for the Youth Poet Laureate competition. Show some love for Gabby Roman.
Okay, I don't have a piece of paper like everyone else, but I do have my phone. This poem is called "The Day the Sun Set." My family was a sunny day. Everyone slipping into roles, soaking sun rays on Saturdays. My mom was a radio. Her laugh filling the air with melodic pauses and snorts. Her voice soothed the flowers and quieted the birds. Her tongue spoke a language so delicate, filled with rolled R's and loud familiarity. My dad was a grill. His hands were spatulas, carefully flipping carnes and constantly poking at chicken.
His sweat evaporated into smoke that rose out of a stone chimney. The air would smell of meat, slowly rising into the sky until the clouds became hungry. My sister was the shady tree in the backyard, her arms beckoning you to play, her body softly swaying to the rhythm of the wind. She would quell thirst through cups filled with the fanciest hose water found around. Her feet followed her across the yard, leaving footprints of innocence and joy. I didn't know what I was. My head could have been a glass of lemonade, attracting the buzz of mosquitoes. My hands could have been paper napkins, absorbing messes, wiping sweat off of dripping foreheads. My body could have been an umbrella, one of those big ones that you see on a family table in a home magazine, spreading my arms around my family, tightly holding on. My family was the sunset, packing up everything into the house, wiping down surfaces, coming to an end. The radio would be unplugged. The grill would be turned off. The tree would absorb no more sunlight. Red, orange, yellow, pink, purple would all paint the sky, expanding over long horizons, capturing memories in color.
One more time for Gabby Roman. All right, so now we go to our youth short story competition. So in honorable mention, we have the story entitled The Colorblind Justice League by Maya Key. Clap it up for her.
Mine is not as deep as everyone else's. Meanwhile, at a secret...
I got you here.
Thank you. Meanwhile, at a secret base, a small group called the Grayscales cackled about the Rainbow Crew's retirement. They hated color. The Grayscales were going to cause havoc all over the world by becoming the new Rainbow Crew, but with a secret plot to remove all colors again. Uh-oh, I know the Rainbow Crew told me not to interrupt, but this is crazy. Oh, hi. Yeah, I'm talking to you, reader. My name's Maya Key. The Rainbow Crew sent me here to be their personal spy. I'm a big fan of the Rainbow Crew, so when they asked me to do this, I just had to say yes. This is terrible. I've got to get back to the Rainbow Crew to tell them what we just saw. Oh, snap. They all shouted together. It all happened so fast. Before we knew it or could do anything about it, everything was colorless again. The crazy thing about it was that everyone in the world was cool with it. They were even cheering on these imposters. The Rainbow Crew pretended to be okay with this madness, but they were not having it. They were all hoping that God would protect them, but they felt so bad about not doing anything, they had a hard time forgiving themselves. They had technically just let the whole world down.
One more time for Maya Key, everybody. All right. Our second honorable mention in the youth short story competition is for the story entitled It Happens Every Night by Jack Dickens. Clap it up for Jack, everybody.
It's me again. All right, here we go. Okay. As I drift off to sleep, I hear a voice. I must be dreaming, I think. The voice starts softly and then gets louder and louder. Wake up, O great prophet. Show us your wisdom, it whispers to me. As the dream becomes clear, I see an old man sitting in front of me. He seems to be some sort of priest. Is he worshiping me? Where am I ask. You'll remember in a few minutes. You do every night. Every night? What is he talking about? I don't remember any dreams like this. Or maybe, yes, I seem to remember something like this before. Multiple times, actually. Strange. Who are you? I ask. I'm your servant, your majesty. I'm here to do as you say. What am I? A ruler? A god? Well, he had said I was a prophet. What does that mean? I must go now, he says. I'm needed elsewhere to await the others. The others? Who else is here? Excuse me, can you explain to me? I start to say. Suddenly, he vanishes. I'm alone. What's going on here, I think? What is this alternate realm? Then, little by little, pieces of the puzzle come into my mind. About 10 minutes in, I seem to remember the others. We seem to have been discussing our different versions of real life. How odd. About an hour later, he comes back briefly. Your breakfast has arrived. I didn't realize until now how hungry I am. Excuse me, I say, hoping that he heard me. Yes, Your Highness? Why did you leave me without answering my questions? You obviously know I'm confused. He stops and thinks for a moment. Then he whispers, because to tell you the whole story at once would break your heart. We must give it time to heal before the next piece of the puzzle is revealed. I can't speak, sorry. What puzzle? I quickly ask, but it's too late. He's gone. Every 2 hours or so, I remember a part of who I am. 2.5 hours after I woke up, or fell asleep, whichever the case may be, I remember that real life is not what I think, but I can't seem to understand why. About 4 hours and 15 minutes in, I remember something horrible. I start to panic. What is going on here? I scream. No one hears me. I'm alone. I start to feel sick. The man was right. I need some time to heal. However, the next thought comes sooner than I had hoped. I had been almost hoping not to find out the whole mystery. But now, it is obvious. To be continued in the Cotton Alley Writers Review magazine. Couldn't fit the whole thing in, sorry.
Oh, you want to take this with you?
Huh? Oh, right.
I mean, I could get your autograph on it if you want. One more time for Jack, everybody. So, for third place in the short story competition, it goes to a story entitled Outside the Box by Grant Lube. That's it, right? Lube? Oh, almost.
Thank you. Not panicking just yet, Hank checked his schedule. The closest worker was 532E in the barn. Hank ran over and threw the barn doors open to find 532E idle, with the same blank face and static, surrounded by pails of milk. What is going on? Hank said, trying to bury his panic. Just like Sprott, she'd finished what she was supposed to be doing and then stopped. He took a picture with his watch to include in his report. There's no way these are the only cases, Hank muttered to himself. If you raise the alarm now, he'd be bombarded with questions by the colonel that he would not know how to answer. He needed more information. Hank ran to the hyperchip factory at the center of the city. He frantically flung open the factory doors to find 300 workers, slack-faced and static-eyed. Before Hank could even submit a report, his eyes involuntarily closed and he felt himself being pulled out of the box. Hank's eyes opened. The hum of machinery and muted explosions told him instantly where he was, outside of the box, in the boardroom. Colonel Anderson sat at the head of the table, surrounded by Boxies, the scientists. An American flag wilted in the corner. Do you mind telling me what the hell is going on in there? Anderson was more irate than normal. Hank blinked. Well, I'm not exactly sure, sir. Anderson scowled. Oh, you're not? Well, you better get sure, because we have a war to win. What is happening with the workers? Hank took a deep breath and replied calmly. Obviously, there is some malfunction. Maybe you could ask one of the Boxies if... Don't you dare put this on us, a haughty Boxy interrupted. We programmed them to invent, you observe them. If they stop inventing, that's your ass. They have invented everything. That's what this is about, Hank protested. Every energy source, every medicine, every weapon. They have nothing new to create. They no longer have a purpose. Can't you see that? Hank realized he hated everyone in the room. They are done, kaput. This experiment is over, he finished, seething. A silence hung in the air. Colonel Anderson looked at Hank, pure vitriol in his eyes. Is that so? Then as leading colonel, I find that this establishment has no other choice. We need to find the next level of weapons. If they need a reason to build, by God, we'll give them a reason. Put our observer back in his box. He gets to watch his race start all over again. There must always be progress. Hank realized what Anderson meant. You wouldn't. That won't work. It'll just... But mid-sentence, Hank's eyes were closed, and he felt the familiar pull return. Hank's eyes reopened. He scrambled to his feet, back in the box. But it was too late. He stared down at the lake, now coated with viscous black oil. Noxious chemicals poured into the air, turning the sky red.
One more time for Grant Luby, everybody. Second place for our youth literary competition for the short story category goes to a story entitled The Ice Wolf by Cody Burns. Is Cody here? Okay, clap it up for Cody anyway. All right, so first place for the youth short story competition as for a story entitled Common Casualty by Marina Puno. Did I say that right? Okay. One more time for Marina, everybody.
I have never really been a yawner, even when the days are too long and the next begins too soon. When my eyes puff with circles and my feet begin to scuff, I barely yawn. My parents, avid yawners, make their tiredness known, echoing through the house with every jaw-dropping scoop of inhalation, a sigh, the cherry on top. Their yawns reflected a life satiated rather than spent. I, on the other hand, barely yawn. Yet, in the spring of solitude, I became witness to new yawns, precipitated by the season's unbearable, undiagnosable monotony. Yawns characterized by a furrowing of the lips, a jaw opening to possible contamination, and eye ducts dripping like caves. These were not yawns of fatigue or fulfillment. These were yawns of impenetrable boredom. A couple months into quarantine, after casually yawning my way through all my typically fun hobbies, my second yawn appeared. Unlike my piano playing, my sleep cycles followed no agenda or routine. Sleep became a new hobby, always attempting to beat my last record of 12 hours, then 13 with 2 naps in between. I slept uncharted like a reckless seaman, traveling waves of slumber by my own compass, landing at some deserted isle of rest until I felt it time to sail again. To me, these imprudent dozing sessions were my only beneficial source of self-care. I was never this alert, I thought. Hell, what else was I to do with the lonely hours spent in isolation, detached from the world itself? Though despite my faulty understanding of the productive snooze, the second yawn came from the azure REM sleep currents, sinking my ship into bottomless fatigue. I awoke from the depths, seasick from the salty sweat-drip blankets, and yawned deeper than the sea itself. I was not refreshed, I was exhausted, and my attempts to distract myself with misguided hibernation proved to only lead my vessel to the shipyard again, bored and deserted. Unlike its predecessors, the next yawn, however, did not come from my own mouth. As my past attempts to diminish my boredom were unsuccessful, I took to the public, masked, of course. My mother offered me trips to the local hardware store, as her form of entertainment lied in excessive house renovation. There, I became an observer of yawn number 3. Every public yawner followed the same routine. Through the surgical blue of non-woven masks, lips appeared to tighten to an O shape, slightly pulling the fabric down the bridge of the nose until an index and thumb pinch readjusted its fit to follow CDC guidelines. Lids pursed together, closed eyes relieved the dry stare, and as I and my remodeling-obsessed mother traveled down aisles of Hampton Bay fans and Black & Decker drills, I also felt relief. The man in aisle 3 yawned as deeply as the 2 kids in aisle 15. My own mother followed the same pattern. This third yawn was universal, a common casualty. I have never really been a yawner, but in these months, the yawn became a familiar foe. We all yawned. We all felt the seductive malaise of seclusion. We all occupied ourselves with our own tedious and unbearable routines. Loneliness almost drove us mad. But despite our solitude and desertion, our yawns were our great equalizer, the commonality keeping us sane.
time for Marina, everybody. That was good. All right, we are halfway through. We're halfway through the evening. That is all our youth start over. All our youth competitors for the evening. Clap it up for all our youth. Thank you. So now we're entering the adult poetry competition. So an honorable mention, the first one is the poem entitled Magic Evening by Grateful Sue. All right, clap it up for Grateful Sue, everybody.
Everyone else has a paper. I have a picture. Because my daughter, some of you may know, Catherine Kesey is an illustrator, an artist, and she illustrated it for me. So that's why I brought it this way. And if you want your own copy, go to my website, gratefulsue.com, and subscribe. Magic Evening. Warm summer night. Mid-June delight. A family reunion. Casual conversations. Culinary invitations. Some soul communion. Go down the dirt road in silent mode. Away from lights, walk. Stop, look and listen. The woods. Speak and glisten while crickets talk. Unfolding grand wonder like Christmas in summer, laced through the dark trees, light strands of fireflies, hundreds before my eyes, going where they please, dancing and blinking like Tinkerbells winking, the quiet lights fly. Such magic, I'm thinking, it's beauty I'm drinking, worship draws nigh.
One more time for Grateful Sue. That's a great name. So the second honorable mention we have in the poetry category for adults is Buzzword by Christie Bengavinga. Is that right? Bengavinga. Christie Bengavinga, everybody.
Hello. The name of my poem is Buzzword, and it's dedicated to the memory of the 750,000 Americans who had died from COVID-19. COVID, COVID, COVID. I know you've heard that famous buzzword too many times. The crimes that virus has done is many, from boomer to Gen Z, going from full life to empty. The isolation, depression, and trepidation, anger was plenty. People had busy lives, lots to do and see, and all of that chaos stopped when the name Fauci and a grouchy president set the precedent that we should all be masked and 6 feet apart. That's a start anyway. And being at home is like a staycay. It could be a break from the madness if you think positively like me, although I wouldn't dare post that on Facebook or Instagram for fear of getting slammed and damned by someone who's not a fan hiding behind a keyboard. Oh Lord, here we go, this friend and that friend going at it again. They haven't even talked since I don't know when, if ever. Lots to fight about, I guess. The disconnect, social unrest, the violence, the silence, denialist, political detesting, unjust arresting. It's unnerving. Feels like I'm swerving to go a straight line. I'm fine. Are you? It's a lot to go through, I know. So many changes, though. The way we eat, shop, learn. My guts churn going into any place. Should I mask my face? Give a person more space? All these different rules, I don't want to be that fool who didn't know. Even still, I go and overflow with anxiety of who I should be. I mean, I want to fit in with society, but they're so disconnected from me. But lately, I felt a change. A slight rearrangement of the universe, less worse, if you will. Maybe the thrill from a vaccine, maybe a settling. People are preparing, hoping to get back to normal. There's a joy with that, to abandon our masks, hug and laugh, and have fun in groups of 20, spend lots of money in stores with no rules. In 2019, we longed for extraordinary, and now we just want ordinary. I just want ordinary. In 2018, I was diagnosed with cancer, a rare disease, and it scared me. Had chemo and lots of surgery to achieve some normalcy. And my husband, Ed, was beside me for support and advocacy. He loved me and helped heal my body. It wasn't easy, but he was there for me. My husband was a casualty of the buzzword. It sounds absurd just hearing the words, but it's true. I wish I knew how to save him, but I didn't. It started with a cough, and on his birthday was his first day in the hospital. And 2 days later, he was better. Best news ever. I picked him up, he still coughed and such, and we had cake. And the next day, trouble breathing, weaving in and out of traffic to get him back quick to heal his sick. And 9 days later, feeling better, lots of treatments, oxygen, IVs, he's feeling ready, optimistic to come home. But on that 10th day, something was strange. No text to say, hey, no calls with, I'm okay, just silence. From the doctors, from the nurses, from him. On a whim I called, anxious he was bedridden, visiting was forbidden, all compassion neatly hidden, but the nurse said, he's fine, just having a little behind on his progress, but just having an off day. No way could I have known that that would be his last day. In every way, I wish he were here today telling me, you'll be okay in his own Jersey way. My husband, Ed, I loved him wholly, completely, wanted him to grow old with me, a father of 3, including our son, who cries beside me. So you see, I view the buzzword differently. For me and his family, back to normal, will never be.
One more time for Christie Bengavinga. Man, I might come cry up in here today. I'm not gonna do it to me. You're not gonna do it to me. Great job, Christie. Great job to everybody else so far. So the next award, the third place for the adult poetry competition, was to a poem entitled "Another of Nature's Plans" by Austin Lange. Is Austin here? No? All right, clap it up for Austin anyway. Okay, so second place in the adult poetry competition goes to a poem entitled "Awash in Light" by Earl Wilcox. Earl is here. His poem will be read by Dr. Gloria Jones. Clap it up for them as they come forward.
I'm not sure I need a mic. Can you hear me? I thought so. Awash in light. I am at breakfast in a large dining room of a retirement home where yesterday I took up my future. Dimly, I see a montage of empty tables, hear the kitchen staff laugh as they prepare food for meals. One sings a gospel song. My eyes are filled with a macular fog, but I see enough to know nobody else is here this early hour. I pick at my eggs and grits, sip coffee, rearrange bacon, ignore butter packets, Smucker's jam, breathe. My white cloth table sits inches from a large floor to ceiling window panes, inside and out. I see him a couple of minutes before he is aware how close I am sitting inside the window. A large sponge in hand, he splashes soapy brownish water on my window, presses a squeegee to wipe away bug poop, red clay streaks, tiny plant mist from nearby shrubs. In seconds, he washes, wipes clean the glass window. I place my scrawny hand against a place he has just cleaned, feigning he has missed a spot. He grins, thumbs up, he rubs frantically on the same window, sponges, shrugs as if to say, "Is it clean now, sir?" The windows are clean as a whistle, my mom might say. His water made them clean. I see outside pink azaleas, daffodils. My heart does not leap up, as one poet said, but something akin. My eyes search for the window washer. he has evaporated into bright air.
One more time for Earl Wilcox and for Dr. Gloria Jones. Dr. Jones, let me get you to read all of my poems, okay? I'm just gonna send them to you in a flash drive. I just need you to read every single one of them anytime I have to do something, all right? Oh man, that was great. So our first place winner in the adult poetry competition goes to a poem entitled The Thief by Brittany Blaskovitz Pritchard. Clap it up for her as she comes.
The thief. My grandmother was a thief. First blew my blue goldfish. She was only supposed to watch him for the weekend while my family RV'd to the ocean, all cramped up and miserable, our house on slow wheels. When I returned, running towards her, scraped knees and sunburned, she would not surrender. She had him eating tiny flakes from her wrinkling hand, jumping from the bowl to reach her. He's mine now, she said, and that was that. 10 years later, 16, I begged for a dog for Christmas. My mother surprised me with a parakeet in my stocking, a yellow serenader with black sideburns. I named him Elvis, tried to hide my disappointment. I had all but forgiven grandmother, blue, a distant memory. My mother convinced me that she would not steal another companion, made me leave Elvis and her company while we searched for new apartments, a place without father. And just like that, I lost them both. Our new space stripped of its tenors. No more shouting or song. When I begged her to give him back to me, she said I should have never left him in the first place. Bad things happen when good girls leave their men behind, all caged up. Thank you.
Awesome. Our last category for the evening is the adult short. One more time for her. Let me say that. I didn't say that. Our last category for the evening is the adult short story competition. In our honorable mention, our first one is a story entitled "The Path Home" by Brian Wilson. Clap it up for Brian.
Standing on the two largest pavers of the drive leading from my garage door, I looked up. Morning never seemed to come this early before. Even as a prior orthopedic surgeon, I had always risen early, but never this early. The neighbors still called me Dr. Samuelson. I knew my first name was Steve, only because my driver's license had Steve listed as my given name. For over 3 decades, I had dutifully awakened, slipped into my Lexus, and driven off to the hospital. It had been years since I paused to look up at a night sky. Orion, Gemini, Aquarius, they were up there. February's waning crescent moon made Venus appear brighter in the eastern sky of the wee morning hours. Taken back to my boyhood days, I remembered first learning what a constellation was. Why I remembered the layout of the stars and not the layout of my bedroom. Well, I had no idea.
cliffhanger, right? I'm like, Great job. One more time for Brian, everybody. Our second honorable mention for the adult short story competition goes to Den of Rhyme by Craig Ferris.
This was my favorite short story I ever wrote because it's the only one I didn't know the ending to when I began it. And it was just as big a surprise to me as it usually is to everybody else. And this is a short excerpt from it. A Den of Rhyme is a story of a writers group that meets in an old country store building that closed in the 1970s and was briefly remodeled in the early 80s as the Globework Arcade and Grill. But that too failed. The key to the front door was long gone, so we entered through a 6-foot sash on either side of the door. When I joined the group in 1998, Ed, its owner, suggested that we use it for our meetings. And for 5 wonderful years, the Thursday evening critiques at the Globeworker stretched late into the night. Until one Thursday, when a young, very talented girl named PJ from the trailer park joined our group. A decade later, I returned to the Globeworker, now an abandoned crime scene. Here in this literary forsaken den we had gathered, spilling out our hearts and emotions onto 20-pound bond in double-spaced black ink, always in an attempt to move closer to the edge of the publishing abyss. Those of us who made it worked our poems and prose onto a hook as one might an earthworm, and flung them as far as we could into the swirling maelstrom of unpublished manuscripts. Some only got a nibble, some a bite, but in landing our catch, each of us was careful that the literary trophy bass we longed for wasn't a bottom-feeding carp. I came here to remember how everything suddenly changed after our last writers' conference at Myrtle Beach. PJ had won a literary award for best short fiction, and we all celebrated at the after party. She was tipsy and whispered, "I brought my novel. Help me find my room and I'll let you have a peek." Despite my misgivings, I was curious about the novel, so I agreed. She opened the door, but I remained in the hallway. I should head back down. "Quit being silly," she said, nodding over her shoulder. "My computer's right there on the table. Go take a look while I visit the restroom." I sat and began reading, but her story was unlike any other story she had read. It was erotic. And the further I read, the more the main character's description began to look like me. "So what do you think?" she said, her voice inches behind me. I think if my wife ever, my words froze as I saw her reflection in the dresser mirror. I stood and turned to find her completely nude. "You wanted a peek," she said, moving closer. Her stunning beauty was every man's fantasy. She pressed her mouth to mine, wrapped one leg around my thigh and ran fingers through my hair. It took all of my moral strength to push her away. "I'm sorry," I said. "I can't do this." "Come on, let's celebrate," she whispered. "We'll do it here on the floor. No one will ever know." "I'll know. PJ, you know I like you, but if we do this, I'll lose everything. My wife, my kids, and I'll never forgive myself." She watched as I straightened my clothes, not even bothering to get dressed. At the door, she said, "Don't tell anyone, okay?" I nodded and left. I remember thinking it was nothing, and I should have known better and said something to my wife that right then. But that's not the kind of discussion that ever ends in, "That's nice, dear." It creeps into conversations, is always present in an argument, and awakens you repeatedly at 3 o'clock in the morning. And if you want to read the whole story, I have samples.
Another suspense-filled one, right? Like, man, that was great. One more time for Craig, everybody. So third place in our adult short story competition goes to a story entitled Uncle Will by Janet Sargent. Clap it up for Janet.
Thank you. Bonaparte was a long way from France. Small town in Virginia was not even that old by the standards of other Virginia towns. Who thought of the name? A Frenchman in the New World, an historian in these mountains, a lover of exotic names? Well, so be it, Bonaparte it is. My family was from Bonaparte, although I never lived there. My people lived there. Uncle Will lived there. Hard to explain our feelings toward Uncle Will. We children knew he was different, but he was ours, and we accepted him as is. As is. That phrase for accepting something just the way it is, maybe fixable, maybe not. Anyway, Uncle Will was there when we visited, my brothers and I. We called him Uncle as we did many adult relatives who were not really uncles. Will's older brother and younger sister had their own lives by the time I was born, so Will was in the house with his mother when I would visit. His crutches leaned against the wall beside his rocking chair when he sat in the living room. They leaned against the wall in the kitchen when he sat at a table, or against the outside wall of the house when he sat on the porch, or against the wall in his bedroom when he went to bed at night. The crutches leaned close by, but not for Uncle Will to pick up and use, but because someone always had to pull Will up from the chair and place them under his arms. My great Aunt Ruth would pull him up out of the chair, hold on to one hand or arm, and reach for the crutches. The crutches needed to be near, and once he had them, he could walk, sort of. The braces on his legs that kept his knees locked and his legs straight helped support him, and his heavy walking movements went like this: one crutch forward, then a leg, the other crutch forward, then the other leg. A rhythmic 4-beat measure. As a child, I could not have lifted him from the chair, none of the children could, but we could grab the crutches for the adult who raised him. After the man who helped Uncle Will get dressed in the morning and undressed at night, it was up to Great Aunt Ruth to take care of him. Mama, Will would shout at any given time. Again, Mama, I'm coming, Will, Aunt Ruth would holler. It was only when I reached an age to think about such things that I pieced together what must have been the fabric of their lives. Will's body had such limitations. Enwrapped tightly in the womb by the birth cord, he was born in 1932, showing the effects of that binding. The cord had been wound around his head, around his torso, around his legs, pinning his hands against his body and into their deformed shape, like a butterfly's wings that, when they can't open fully, solidify into a pleated shape forever. Will's hands bent downward at the wrist and could not open. He was born misshapen and therefore entangled for the rest of his life in invisible cords. I was older when I actually thought about Uncle Will having to call every time he had to go to the bathroom, every time he wanted to change rooms. He had to call if weather drove him from the porch. His internal thoughts stay hidden from me because I did not ask him what he thought. That interior space that we all have but take for granted as just one of our free spaces must have been different for Uncle Will, for he had so little freedom. He was not free to move unless someone got him started. He was not free to drive away or walk away. Away. Where, if anywhere, did he want to go, I wonder? Would he have told me some of his thoughts if I had ever thought to ask him? Who knows? I didn't ask him.
A couple of times when things got too much for my great Aunt Ruth, when she was older and had back trouble, I witnessed a harsh exchange, an argument between mother and son about what I can't remember. What I do remember, Aunt Ruth coming into the living room where Will sat in his rocking chair in front of one of those boxy wooden radios. She's exasperated about something, and Will is too. There's a back and forth argument, and then Aunt Ruth sputters out, "Will, you're killing me." That's what I remember. That's the truth that just hung in the air for a moment. Through smoke from the cigarette, through the radio's voice, or through our voices playing marbles on the floor. Will, you're killing me. Thank you.
One more time for Janet Sargent, everybody. All right, we're down to our last two of the evening, last two. In second place for the adult short story competition goes to a story entitled Sacrifice by Eric Shucksman. Clap it up for Eric, everybody.
Chaka studies Sira and the infant Sar, wrapped in soft grass, seed fluff, and leather. He quietly sleeps as Sira caresses his head. Sira's wet eyes shift up, locking on Chaka. A tear drops from her cheek. Chaka's heart melts in her eyes. His breath catches. He thinks of his own children, nieces, nephews, and cousins. The entire tribe of family. He does not want to do this. Every cell in his body rejects this tradition. But he has no choice. If he defies order, he puts his entire tribe at risk, and he will be banished, leaving him to fend for himself or to start a new group with others that have also been banished, not desirable either. They are alone for a reason. He must redeem himself. A tap on the shoulder spins Chaka around. Safin points. In the gap of the rocks stands Bint, who signals safe. Safin leads the group quietly to the outcropping. The road's path is becoming less clear, now fully overgrown, and his side path to the rocks is gone. Passing through thick foliage, even more risky as sounds increase. Leaves brush, sticks snap, ground moves. Safin takes up a spot with a good view of valley below and pulls out a small ration of nuts and fruit. He signals to the group, eat. He signals for Bint to watch above. Bold to watch back down the road, and the others to watch ahead on the road. Chaka sits next to Sira in a small shelter hidden, all sides covered. The outcropping offers a view of the valley and the surrounding area, their scents carried above the forest floor, a safe spot to stop. Sira eats and feeds her baby without making eye contact with Chaka. Safin keeps looking back at her. They know the baby's scent is an attractant to many predators, not just the Dakma. Chaka watches Sari feed her baby. How odd is it that they protect and feed this child, only to later take its life? Does not seem to make sense. This baby could easily be his own, could be Safin's. Safin must be agonizing. Sira is one of the many maids vying for his attention since she was widowed. He had spent a lot of time with Sira. Chaka knows Safin desires her as a maid, but the current events will put the entire possibility into question. She could not trust Safin, thus recall her desires for him. If he cannot protect her child, he is no use to her. A flock of birds erupts from the trees just in front of the outcropping. Chaka looks to the tree, nothing visible. He then studies the valley floor below. He sees nothing, but something is off. Safin rushes air through his lips short of a whistle. All the warriors turn to him. He points down. A leaf rustles. Not more than 10 leaps away lurks the dark beast. The Dakma stalks back on the trail they took here.
One more time for Eric, everybody. down to our last story of the evening. Y'all excited about that? Clap it up then, clap it up. So I have the pleasure of knowing this gentleman. I must say he is the best voice in the business, and he's also one of the best dressed poets, writers, creators in the business as well. So please show some love to Anthony Torres for his short story, Contraption.
Thank you, Angelo. Can everyone hear me? I don't have to wear a mask. So I've chosen to read the buttressing pieces of my story, its beginning and its ending. One moment. Google Drive UI. All right, there we go. Thomas heard stars and static humming out from the tinkering contraption inside of him, familiar as a sliver of sun in a dark room. Coming online was first a matter of noise, then of color and speech. Searing fluorescence and twinkling white tiles populated before Thomas like coalescing sections in the contraption's orchestra. A rippling fellow in a mint gob hat had been fixed on Thomas, who, sensitive to silence, sent a glance to either side, where he found he was flanked by two faces bright as the yummy lumps in the case before him. Well, yummy had been promised by a neon sign, but the colors sang out to him. The contraption quickened. And now, the last. Feeling is a curious matter. Nothing soon in Mo's life would make sense of the way Thomas held her in his eyes, folded her in an embrace like a sunrise to a lone flowered clearing, arms full of his favorite color at last. Everything about the scene had stayed recognizable when Mo heard stars and static humming out from the tinkering contraption inside of her father for the first and last time.
One more time for Anthony Torres over there. Keep that applause going for all our winners this evening. Congratulations. Awesome. I do want to thank the Arts Council, to Melanie, to Jesslyn, to the staff, everybody who is here and those who are not here as well for putting this on. Thank you to all the sponsors who help with the prizes and it's kind of the organization of everything. We really appreciate that. Thank you to all the family and friends that came tonight as well. Like I said, when you have a room full of people that support writing and short stories and poems, I think it's an amazing thing. This is it. Friday night, it's not football night, it's not basketball. We're here to listen to some words. So I think that's really amazing. So give yourselves a hand one more time. Things I do want to mention on this coming Thursday, or next Thursday, November 11th, from 5 to 7 p.m. There will be a reception for Studio Artist Showcase at the Arts Council, which is, the Center for the Arts, which is 121 Main Street. Then we have at the same time, the Eileen Nichols retrospective exhibit also happening. So make sure you check that out. On November the 19th, they will also have a competitive portrait drawing from 5:30 to 7. And the drawing itself is from 6 to 7. And that's a competition, correct? And so how much they win? $1 million?
Yeah, $1 million. That's what
$1 million.
$100.
Okay.
So it's a tournament style competition. We start with 16 artists and they get 5 minutes on the clock. The person who's modeling gets to choose their favorite, and the favorite moves on to the next round until we get to the final two. And they do a head-to-head battle, drawing a VIP that will announce that night, and it's a really amazing, fun time. It takes 1 hour from beginning to end once we get going, and we always have a great time with it.
Great, and they're looking for models and drawers or artists as well. So if you would like to be a model, you want to stand like this, then they can do that. Or if you think you are a great artist as well, or know you're a great artist, also can sign up for that. YorkCountyArts.com. .org. I know that on the top of my head. I should have known it. YorkCountyArts.org is the website to go to find more information about that. And a couple other things I do want to mention. On this Sunday, 8 p.m. at 742 North Anderson, there's a poetry event called Lockdown Poetry, which is sponsored by 742, and there's a poet named Amaya who's based out of Chester, South Carolina, and is doing an event there. I'll be one of the featured poets for that event, so please come out and check that out. Also, in this room on December 11th, we will have the Christmasville Poetry Slam called the Deck the Halls Poetry Slam. So if you were around for the One Word Poetry Festival, we had a poetry slam in here, which was amazing. We had poets from all over the Southeast. And so we'll have that again, and they'll be competing for $4,000 in prizes. And so that's going to bring out the best of the best, I guarantee it. So please check that out. And then lastly, but certainly not least, our youth poet laureate, Alexandra Aradis, is doing a reading on December the 21st. And it also will be downtown, so we're trying to finalize location. But I did want to put that on your radar already. So those are some amazing literary, poetry, artistic events that are happening right here in your neck of the woods. You don't have to go to Charlotte or anywhere else. We have some great stuff happening here. So thank y'all again for coming. Thank you to the staff. Thanks for the supporters. And please eat some food, drink some water, and take care. Have a great evening.